Hey everybody, welcome to the Hell of a Way to Die News Roundup. It's Francis once again. So I had a whole bunch of stories that I kind of wanted to talk about, and I did an interview today with Tom Novelli from militarytimes.com, and we talked about a lot of stuff. And so I've got some news that's kind of being covered later this week, and I was going to kind of let this thing that's been brewing on Twitter alone because I don't want this podcast to be about Twitter, right? Like this is not a thing for us to talk about Twitter drama. However, when we've got Twitter drama and we've got some really stupid fucking shit being said, that's when, the crossover, like I don't have to ignore it. I can bring it all on. So today, the news is going to be kind of taken up with our Twitter person of the week, Ivan Snook. Now, if you're unaware of who Ivan Snook is, I was as well until he said some really stupid fucking shit. Now, I don't want to turn this into a bashing thing. I don't want to. I don't want to make this into let's all dogpile on this guy. I want to take what he said and I want to kind of analyze it. And I want to take a look in because it wasn't just a tweet. If it was just a tweet, I would have ignored it. I did my quote tweet. I moved on. Fuck it, whatever. No reason to continue on with that. But then Task and Purpose did a whole story about him, where they let him expound upon the stupid shit that he was going to say, and it just got worse. And then somebody found some other stuff, and this guy just seems like a real fucking piece of work. So let's go ahead and talk about Mr. Snook here. So here's the tweet in question. Ivan says, the military should stop giving commissions to any enlisted. Mustangs erode the esteem, legitimacy, and distinct culture of the officer corps like merchants marrying into the aristocracy. Nevertheless, we are intent on lowering the standards and reducing military service to be just a job ASAP. And this comes up from, EOD captain here talking about, and what this is, so a Mustang is somebody who joins the Army as enlisted and then commissions over and becomes an officer. It's not, I'm not going to say it's a thing that happens all the time, but it's certainly not rare. I've met plenty of former enlisted officers. My brother got up to E7 and then, he hit the big Call of Duty prestige button and came back in as a second lieutenant and worked his way up there. So I know them, and it is, some are good, some are bad. I mean, just like any officer, there is no, there's no, saying this is what's going to make somebody the best officer in the world. I would say that usually being enlisted means that you have a better understanding of the rest of the Army when you become an officer. I do tend to, when I come across an officer who I know was enlisted. I had a former commander who was a captain, who was a drill sergeant at one point. So, and he was great. He was very attentive to us. He was all combat arms, and he came to a public affairs unit, and he had absolutely no idea what the fuck to do with us because, we're reservist public affairs. But he wasn't like, you have to do it my way. It was, let me pull the NCOs aside and say, look, how does this work? How do I be an effective officer for you? And that was great. Like one of the best officers I've ever met. Captain Carpenter, great guy. He retired a while back, but, so there are plenty of enlisted into officer that is great. And the thing is that the barrier to entry to becoming an officer in the military is a bachelor's degree. In literally anything, you can go and get a bachelor's degree in general studies from your local community college, and you can be an officer in the military once you hit 22 or whatever it is when you get out. Hell, if you manage to knock out some credits in high school and then hit it hard, you can become an officer at 20 or 21. Nothing's stopping you from that. So when this guy is telling us here that there's that there's some legitimacy and that it's a difference of the distinct culture of officer called the merchants marrying into the aristocracy. I have seen officers be the biggest dumbasses in my entire life. I've stared officers down for trying to do some bullshit to my soldiers. Turns out when you no longer give a shit about your career, you're not worried about pissing off a captain, especially when you're a staff sergeant and when you've got, as much time as I had in at the time. I've told more than one lieutenant and captain, absolutely on no certain terms, fuck off, sir. Respectfully. So this is this entire, like I said, this entire tweet is absolutely ridiculous. It plays into some insane idea of that the officer corps has that there's some sort of high and mightiness to it. And like at a certain time in the past, you could argue that. But the thing is that the argument back is just like, you just bought your commission in the 1800s. Like you wanted to be an officer in the British Army or whatever, it's because you had money. And oftentimes you had to have money to be an officer because you had to pay money to outfit your soldiers, because that's just how things worked back then. But you got to abuse them and, beat them whenever you wanted. So I guess there's plus sides to it. But this idea of there being aristocracy is complete bullshit, out the window. Now, there is a cultural divide between the officers and the enlisted. And that comes from who do you hang out with? When you are enlisted, you become a sergeant, you become a leader of soldiers, but in a different way than an officer does. An officer is more of a planning to do things, and the NCOs are the execution. The officer comes down, says, we need to do this. The sergeant say, hey, everybody, here's what we're doing. We're going to go ahead and do it. Obviously, it gets a little bit more complicated than that. There's more to it. But at the base, at its most basic level, there's your divide. So, and I will say, because there is a barrier of entry of being a college-educated person, then yeah, there is, your average 18-year-old is not coming in as an officer. Now, they might come in as an enlisted, improve themselves, get their degree. I have a degree. I could have been an officer fucking a decade ago. I didn't want to. For a multitude of reasons, and not just the reasons of fuck officers, but it wasn't a world I wanted to be in. It wasn't the job that I wanted to do in the military. I liked being an NCO. I liked working with soldiers. I liked having these young people that I could teach and that I could also learn from. I loved having, some kid who was, 21 years old and be like, no, show me how you do all this stuff. I have no idea. That's one of the joys of being in that kind of level of management, is the mentorship that you get to do. So become an officer, that kind of goes away. And it does not to say that there isn't some kind of mentorship and things like that. It does exist, obviously, just in a different way. So that's one of the reasons. Also, I didn't want to fuck off for like 12 weeks to do officer candidate school. I didn't even want to do the 4 weeks to go get my E7. So if you've ever wondered, like, Francis, why did you do 20 years and only get out as an E6? It's because at a certain point in time, I wanted to stop leaving for long periods of time. And that was right when I had a kid. When we had our daughter, no more. I didn't want to do any of that shit. Asterisk on that, though, in 2017, I did go to Japan for 2 weeks, because if the government's going to pay for your trip to Japan and put you up there for 2 weeks, you're going to go ahead and do that. And that was a lot of fun. So Ivan here said this. Let's see. This was on the 26th. So this was yesterday. And let's see. Yeah, the Jeff Skugel catches up with him and gets an interview with him. And he, so this is the thing, as it says, Mustangs erode the esteem, legitimacy, and distinct culture of the officer corps. And honestly, had it stopped right there and it not been merchants marrying into the aristocracy, I could see it. I could see the point, because yeah, when somebody who was a ditch digging private at one point in time comes in and like has a different idea of like how the soldiers work, there can definitely be cultural problems there, especially if you become an officer and you still have like enlisted mentality. Because like I said, it's different. It is a different kind of, it's a different mentality. It is not better mentality. It is just different. So, as Jeff says here, Mustang is a slang for the U.S. military officer who commissioned after serving as an enlisted service member. I told you about Captain Carpenter. I'll tell you about this lieutenant too, because I mentioned Japan. The lieutenant that I was with in Japan was, I think he got up to staff sergeant, and then he commissioned over and became a lieutenant. And they were, you know what? He was perfectly fine. He was acceptable at what he did. I had nothing positive or negative really to say. I couldn't even tell you the guy's name. He was nice enough. He wasn't an asshole to us, which, that's all you're really looking for, is somebody who's not going to be a complete dick. And, it was fine. Was he a good officer outside of that? Fuck if I know. Maybe he was. He was a first lieutenant, so he got promoted at least one time as an officer, I assume. So, judging by the reaction Snook received when he posted his theory about Mustangs, it's fair to say that many other veterans, including longtime enlisted officer and Mustangs who have been both, disagree with him. So obviously, yes, a lot of people were kind of yelling at him. I'm not too concerned about the tweets where we all, quote tweeted him and told him he was being a dipshit. What this is that Snook, they reached out to him and they got his kind of take on these things. And I just, first, let's go back here. So Ivan Snook, former USMC, 0311 rifleman, Fallujah with 1st Recon, Columbia University, critical theory, psychoanalytic theory, military, and Ukrainian politics. That's just like the most tiresome fucking bio that I've read from, and like exactly what I would expect out of something like this. Everybody, maybe he does know about Ukrainian politics. Fuck if I know. But all of this, like when critical theory, psychoanalytic theory, and you're thinking just like, oh, so this guy's going to fucking talk about Freud a lot. Hold that fucking thought. Let's go back on over here. So Snook says, this is what happens when you become a Lance Corporal, Snook says, who left the Marine Corps as a corporal. So motherfucker's never even been an officer, barely been an NCO. I mean, a corporal is an E4. And I know a corporal is technically an NCO, but it's, the difference between a corporal and a specialist is that the specialist has to sweep the motor pool in the rain and the corporal doesn't. That's about it. It puts you into the chain of command, which in the Marines, the corporal means a lot more in the Marines than it does in the Army, I feel. But again, it's still an E4 when you get out. So it says, it's like what happens when you're a Lance Corporal who left the Marine Corps as a corporal. You've been with your other buddies who are Lance Corporals. You still snap to parade rest when you're talking to just another corporal. But when your buddy picks up corporal, all of a sudden the image of the corporal is somehow rendered ordinary. It's very much more humanized. It's lost a lot of its symbolic power and authority. Fucking good. Like, I'm sorry. I don't want my E3s to be looking at NCOs as some sort of like godlike beings or something. Like that there is some power behind this, because again, I've met a lot of really shitty NCOs, and I think that's going to humanize you a lot faster than like I picked up rank. Now, I have many times argued that I do believe that, and I know the Army does do this sometimes, but if you're in the regular Army and you go from E4 specialist and you become a buck sergeant, you get your E5, that you should be moved to somewhere to a different, a different section, something where the people that you're working with aren't the people that you were going drinking with. Because I would hate to lose my drinking buddies because I picked up sergeant, but if I'm also above them in the Army and in charge of them, then yeah, that dynamic definitely changes. Now, if I become sergeant and they move me over a section and, my specialist Snuffy and, all my drinking buddies are still specialists, but at least I'm not over them. I'm not their specific NCO. Then that's a little bit of a better, I guess, position to be in. So still though, this is a really ridiculous kind of mentality to go down here. So continuing, Snook says that he was not surprised that his argument was so widely rebuked, but he was taken aback by the level of vitriol with which people responded on social media. I'm sorry, Twitter, like posting on Twitter, you always have to assume that you have a bucket of chum over the fucking sharks or the hogs or whatever you want to call them, and just always tipping, always about to tip. Because if you tip too far, you're going to get yelled at. And that's what Twitter's all about. I'm sorry. That's what we do here. He says, quote, I can't imagine being at a party or some other public gathering discussing my graduate school research, analyzing small unit group psychology, veteran suicide, and the causes of war atrocities with Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory and Axel Honneth's recognition theory, and then having a friend of a friend with no background in philosophy say to me in front of everyone, wow, that's really fucking stupid. You're a real dumbass. Okay, but you didn't do that. You didn't do any of that shit. You didn't talk about research in small group psychology. You didn't talk about veteran suicide or war atrocities. You said some stupid shit about like aristocracies, and then you're upset. You're surprised by everybody coming and yelling at you. And look, I'm not a philosophy person. I don't give a shit. I understand. When I say I don't give a shit, I don't want to diminish philosophy in any way. But I will diminish Freud, because what the fuck, man? He was a coke addict who loved to talk about dongs, which sounds like an enlisted person, really. Like maybe that's why he's really into it. So Snook says, I don't mean that he wouldn't say so because I would beat him up, but because it's just so tacky. He says that he also understands why he receives so much pushback because Mustangs are considered sacred cows within the military, especially among the enlisted service members. Yes. They are. Again, we love to have an officer who was, dragging his dick in the dirt just like the rest of us. It says, quote, the enlisted reverence for the Mustang is irrelevant to its actual talents as an officer, but rather is more of, well, it's fundamentally narcissistic in that the enlisted soldier sees in the Mustang himself. He sees a hero from the same background that's on the inside, and proving that if only he himself was put in such a position of legal authority to challenge those officers, that he'd be running the show so much better. For a psychology guy, this guy does not understand people's fucking brains. I feel like I look at it. I would look at somebody who would say, "Oh, they were enlisted. Cool. They have a better understanding of what it's like to be me." That's it. I'm not looking. And I don't think anybody else really is looking at these things like, wow, that could be me one day. Because we all know that it could be if we wanted it to be. Again, I could have been an officer. Most NCOs that I've met, because you can't climb the ranks. At least I don't know now. When like pre-COVID, war on terror, all that stuff, you really couldn't climb the ranks too well if you did not have a degree of some kind. Like college transcripts were always part of your ranking when you put in your packet to get your next NCO rank. So like, and it's very, very rare, I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I was an enlisted guy. I'm sorry, I was a reservist, so I was not in the whole army all the time. I did a couple deployments, but I was never active duty on a regular basis. So please let me know if I am majorly incorrect on this, but like, I would say it's pretty rare to find an E7 that doesn't have a degree of some kind. And a lot of times those degrees are earned while they're maybe on deployment, in the military, things like that. But there's not, it's hard to get to that point without having some kind of education background at that point. Like your uneducated enlisted people are your E1 through E4s. And even that, there's plenty of people there who have degrees. I've met lawyers who were E4s, because they were paralegals, excuse me. They were paralegals, and they became lawyers while they were in the military. And they're like, no, it's cool. I'm just going to finish up my enlistment. And I'm going to get out and go be a lawyer in the real world. I don't want to do this as an officer. It sounds like it fucking sucks. And I've met plenty of JAG people. And yes, it sounds like it fucking sucks sometimes. So I completely understand that. But there is not this, I don't think that like the enlisted people are all like, we're not like 2001 Space Odyssey staring up at the monolith, like the monolith is a big like butter bar or something, and we're all the apes like touching like, ooh, I could be this one day. I too could be overpaid and full of myself and not actually know anything. Oh, this could be me one day. No. They are who the Mustang is, who they are to us, because like I said, they probably have a better understanding of what this is and what we're doing and how much it sucks to be enlisted sometimes. Like, I will listen to a lieutenant who spent time as a private more than I will listen to a lieutenant that hasn't, because the lieutenant that hasn't probably doesn't, well, I don't want to say that. I would say, though, that if a lieutenant said, oh yeah, hey, I was enlisted, I was an E4 or an E5, and then I moved over to be an officer, that lieutenant becomes more interesting to me. That lieutenant becomes somebody I just like, oh, I want to talk to this person. What made you make that decision? What is it that you liked and didn't like about being enlisted? What is it that drives you to move away from enlisted into officer, and not in an accusatory way, but in a just I'm a curious person. That's what these people are to me, and because that is an interesting place to go. That's an interesting aspect to be. So this guy is kind of really up his own ass, but he's a philosophy guy. Philosophy guys kind of live up their own asses. Okay, so let's see. There's this person, Catherine Kuzminski, director of military veteran social society programs at the Center for New American Security think tank in Washington, D.C. She says there is the ability to take someone who's proven themselves on the enlisted sides and capitalize on their experience, add to their education, and add to what they can bring to the force. Commissioning process also shows the enlisted service members that they have a pathway to advance in the military, which is great. Like, that is something, because not everybody wants to be a fucking sergeant major. I certainly didn't. If I felt the need to stay in the Army longer, I would have commissioned. I would have eventually said, yes, let me go ahead and just become an officer, because I want to make more money and I want to do less like actual grunt work. I want to do more sitting around in an office. That's what I do now. I'm 40. I'm 40 years old. I don't want to sleep on a cot. Are you kidding me? A cot? Ugh. My back hurts just thinking about that. A cot in the cold. Man, I have been on training missions where we had cold weather and hot weather injuries in the same fucking day because Wisconsin is a place that God has forsaken, and Fort McCoy is the asshole that God will never clean. And it was, we would get people getting cold weather injuries at night because our fucking generators weren't working properly, and then our overnight people who would sleep in the tents during the day where we didn't have air conditioning, and then it would shoot up to like 85, 90 degrees outside. Guess what happened to them? Sometimes they go to sleep and then they wake up in a hospital. That's how it goes. That's not a world I want to live in anymore. So yes, I probably would have done that as well. And I think that does also, like, yes, that's a good, like, hey, there are different pathways you can take. If you don't want to be enlisted in the Army, you don't have to be. There is other options. Hell, I was getting chased down by warrant officers. Like, there was, and actually it was warrant officer recruiting is very strange because warrant officer recruiters have to be enlisted. So I had an E7 that for like about 6 months was trying to get me to go warrant, and I don't know why. I expressed no interest in it. There was public affairs has no warrant officer corps. So I was like, I'm not interested in any of this. And, again, it's like, well, what about your career? It's like, I want to get out. Like I'm here because I have a contract, not because like I'm excited to do this shit anymore. My last like 3 or 4 years, I was just kind of watching, it's a lot of watching the clock, seeing when I get to head for the door. So, Kuzminski says that Snook's argument represents perhaps a very old worldview about which troops can serve officers and which can't. We do things differently in the United States of America, she says. Salute. In fact, some of the U.S. military's best leaders have been Mustangs. Audie Murphy, Chessie Puller, Chuck Yeager. We got plenty of people, pulled from the enlisted. If you're listening to us over talk about Sharp on Joe's podcast on Lines Led by Donkeys, Sharp was enlisted, pulled up to the ranks, and he is constantly reminded that he's a piece of shit enlisted guy by all the British people. But that's part of the charm of being early 1800s wars going on. But when asked if the fact that Mustangs have proven to be superlative leaders undermines his argument, Snook says no. It has little to do with the individual. It's about unit morale. Snook holds a master's degree from Columbia University in New York on European history, politics, and society, and says most of his analysis of military leadership has been based on Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory, particularly his theory on group psychology and the analysis of the ego. He also notes that Freud treated World War veterans suffering from what was then referred to as shell shock. And he believes Freud would likely be opposed to the idea of commissioning enlisted service members because he would feel it's necessary to maintain a strict distinction between officers and enlisted service members for good order, discipline, especially in wartime. Now let's go back to this. European history, politics, and society. If 1800s fucking Europe is what you're basing all of this on, get fucked. Like, holy shit. And I cannot, like, again, I did not really want to dive into this too much, but this fucking corporal, high on his own fucking supply, high on his own drama at this point. It's about unit morale. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit. Absolutely at no point in time has anybody been like, wow, we're going to lose this war because of all these enlisted people here. All these enlisted people who became officers. And again, the psychoanalytic theory, I don't know anything about it. I'm not going to click on the Wikipedia and go through it and insult any of the philosophy people that we have here. But like, and so I don't know if psychoanalytic theory is what is something that we can base this on, but certainly European history, politics, and society is not it. Like, because European officers today are still huge pieces of shit. Like, America's army, and look, I'm gonna fucking fly the flag here. I'm gonna for a minute just like start, playing God Bless America behind us. But the reason why our army is so fucking good is because we don't do that bullshit anymore. And we fought a whole fucking war to get away from it. I was a proud member of the NCO Corps because NCOs are so fucking important. Because we're the ones who execute the shit and we tell the privates what to do. Like, that's, if you don't have NCOs who can operate like that, you're not going to have a good military. And look, I know we lost a fucking war recently. I get it. That is, look, nobody wins a guerrilla war. That's just the long and the short of it. That's not necessarily our fault. That's not the fault of the military. That's the fault of the people who kept shoving the military into these things and saying, "Well, Afghanistan is just around the corner." Like, as a military, like, force on force, I think that we stack up pretty well against anybody else. And this whole thing, this entire rabbit hole that this guy went down, is just the most up his own ass kind of like mentality. This insane thought process that there's like, as soon as you sign the dotted line that says enlisted, you're fucking tainted. You're tainted forever. You can never be an officer. And like, what does that mean anywhere else? Does that mean you can't be a leader anywhere else? Does that mean that, like, once you hit this other, your job, you're working at a warehouse or something, you can't be the warehouse foreman? No, you started out as an underling. You can't go and be in there because that would, have negative effect on the morale. And all it's going to do is make the other people who are working the warehouse look up at you and think like, wow, maybe one day I could be there if I worked hard enough. And we can't fucking have that. We can't have that. We cannot have the enlisted people having hope. That's when the whole thing fucking breaks down. As soon as your enlisted people have hope, the whole thing's over. So, fuck this guy. I am probably going to block him just so I never have to look at his stupid shit again, because holy crap, did this, like, really, as you can see, it's kind of worked me up a little bit. But this whole thing is just so insane. And he even says a few years ago, I probably most certainly would not have even agreed with myself. I would have been one of those guys anonymously shitting on me on Twitter. Look, man, I'm Francis Horton. I'm shitting on you right here where it is. I don't know what to tell you, man. You sound like a guy who did one turn in the Marines, because if you got out as a corporal, you did your 4 years and you got out. And look, more power to you. Everybody does, you do your part. That's fine. That's great. But don't come around here in our fucking neck of the woods and start with this shit. And I want to finish this off here too, because this also was found where he wrote this: flirting with disaster, an argument against integrating women into combat arms. I'm going to go ahead and say that this probably is also heavily influenced by his insanity of wanting to talk about, how the enlisted people, European history. Well, the Europeans wouldn't have women. Go fuck yourself, man. I don't care who's pulling the trigger. Anybody can do it. and it's the inevitable sexual friction undermines morale and endangers soldiers' lives. Jesus Christ. Like, I understand soldiers are horny, but holy shit, man. Like, maybe, like, but also, like, I don't think this guy understands that, like, dudes fuck dudes too. Like, right? Like, we understand that, right? Like, guys have sex with other guys all the time. The infantry, possibly one of the most homoerotic kind of branches of the army or the Marines you can be in. Those dudes love to fucking punch each other in the dick constantly. Another reason I'm glad I never went infantry. And for you 11 bang bangs, don't yell at me, because you know it's true. It's a little gay over there, and that's okay. But I am gonna also, like, it's a bonding thing, and that's fine. But, like, male romances and male sexual, like, tension happens, like, regardless. And just throwing a bunch of women in there is not going to, I don't think, affect this any more than it will. But also, like, you don't know. We've never done it. Like, we haven't done it yet. And it's impossible to say whether this is going to be a good or a bad idea. You know what? Maybe it will turn out to be a bad idea. But you can't just sit here and tell me it's going to be a bad idea without actually giving it a try. And our recruiting levels at this point, as in the Army, are so low that we don't start turning people away anytime soon. All right. So, Ivan Snook, I don't know, man. I would invite you on the show, but honestly, I don't want to hash this out with you. Like, I'm just going to yell at you a lot. And, because I'm an enlisted guy, and I don't have the aplomb that I'm sure that you people with your master's degrees must have. I am curious if this guy thinks that he would ever be a good, like, if he would join the Marine, go back to the Marines, he'd have to do it as enlisted, right? Like, he's ruined as an officer, obviously. So, hope to see you, back on the trench lines, man, I guess, man. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and, take a breather on this one, and, we're going to come back and, talk about some other things. Okay, we're back. I've calmed down a little bit. So this is the part where we talk about some of the things I've been watching, reading. Recently, my daughter, who's been very much into reading comic books, and we're finally getting her to watch some of the, not some of the Marvel movies. We watched Loki. Currently, we're watching Hawkeye with her. She's really enjoying that. It's Marvel. She's 8. What do you want? I enjoyed Hawkeye. I like Hawkeye because I like to, the one, everybody else is a superhero. And then you've got Jeremy Renner's character, who is just like, I'm a middle-aged guy who can't hear shit because, everything was exploding around me all the time. And, Tony Stark gets this superhero suit, and Thor is a god, and Hulk is the Hulk, and Jeremy Renner is just like a guy with a bow and arrow who still fucking kicks ass and does very good, what he does. So, we've been enjoying that, but we did recently get Marvel Unlimited. You can read all the Marvel comic books. Again, as I've said many times, I'm not really into superhero stuff, but there's a lot of really good stuff that's in there. One of them, all the Star Wars comics are in there, so that's what I'm kind of going through right now. But let's start out first. The first thing that I did this weekend, I went and found out that I went and watched Napoleon. I went to go see Napoleon because I was under the impression that this was going to be some, kind of like a cultural zeitgeist in, a thing that is going to, like the Barbenheimer thing, right? Barbie and Oppenheimer. And I went to see those a couple weeks after they were out, because it's hard to find time to watch a movie, especially when it's not something that you really prioritize a lot. So, but I wanted to go see Napoleon because I love Joaquin Phoenix, acting like a weird guy. I will see anything Joaquin Phoenix is in because he's such a fucking weird guy. I'm every time I watch Joaquin Phoenix in something, I am saddened by the loss of River Phoenix, because we could have had 2 really weird guys, and we don't. We just have the one. So I went to go watch Napoleon. It's a weird movie. And I think a lot of that comes down to, it's weird because they are trying to cram in the entirety of Napoleon into a 2.5 hour long movie. And I know that I've heard that there's like a cut that is 4 hours long, which I will 100% watch. Not because I think that it was a great movie or I think like, oh, finally they're going to, we're going to be able to catch up on things, but because I want to see more weird shit that's happening. I think one of the big issues is that it is doing Napoleon, but also trying to talk about the French Revolution, and then it goes into the Reign of Terror, and then, it just... And they don't really explain the politics very well, and they don't really explain what the fuck Napoleon is doing very well. It's like a clip show. It's a Napoleon clip show. So you should definitely go watch it for that. You should watch it because the opening scene is Marie Antoinette getting her fucking head liberated from her body. And it's, we leftists love to joke about the guillotine, but like that... What a fucking French way of execute, like American execution. We figured out it's like a gun, boom, or a rope, a tree, and a cattle rustler. We've got an execution. The French require like a whole, and look, the French love a union, so they require a whole like group of people to get together to build this thing that is just a fancy way of removing your head from your body. But they love a spectacle. I have this up because this is the greatest line reading ever, where where Napoleon is yelling at the British people that I don't know. I don't think it was Wellington that he's yelling at. Maybe the royalty, but yeah, it's like, you think you're so great because you have boats. Which, if you watch another great Napoleon movie, Master and Commander, you will know the French had boats too. But this is all land war stuff, and it's very disjointed. And there's just like, I don't want to, like, I don't know if you can really spoil Napoleon. But I think so. So I'm not going to get into too many of the weird shit. Napoleon was apparently a weird guy. I talked to Joe, like I went and saw it and immediately jumped because I'm in a group chat with, my fellow podcasters. And Joe is a Napoleon guy. And my first thing was like, Joe, I don't say this insultingly, but is there evidence that Napoleon may have been autistic? And he was just like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then Joe watched and he's like, okay, I understand why you're asking that question. The mannerisms and everything is just really fucking weird. And I don't know anything about Napoleon. I know, Double Exile. I know Waterloo. I know some very basic things. I know some very basic things about the French Revolution. But it's never something that I really studied because like it's so well documented, which means it's a huge tome of information, and it's not something that I care enough to dive into. So my thinking was like, oh, I'll watch this Napoleon movie. I'll learn a little bit about Napoleon. I don't think I did. Maybe I did. I learned about Josephine, but maybe. Like, they had a weird relationship. And I want to say, shout out to Napoleon for being a guy who's horny for his own wife, which is great. You don't see that a lot in despotic rulers, I guess. They're usually fucking around constantly, but he was very much enamored with Josephine and forgave her for cheating on him multiple times, even though he was doing the same thing. But it's France in the 1800s. You could be a Frenchman and do that. You can't be a French woman and do that. So I've been asked by a lot of people, is it good? Should I watch it? I don't know if people have been saying this, that, and the other thing. You should definitely watch it. It is just cinematically, it's a weird movie. And we're going to talk more about it on Joe. Like, tomorrow I'm recording with Joe and Carrie for Lions Led by Donkeys. So listen to it over there. Once that comes out, we're going to expound on it a lot more. But it's a weird movie. That doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It's just a weird movie. Next thing, other things that I've been watching. Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. So this is on Apple TV. This is it's a movie about monsters, and I'm 3 episodes deep, and we've not really seen a whole lot of big fucking monsters. And it's the whole point of these kaiju movies. Like, you watch a Godzilla movie, Godzilla's going to be in it. And so far, Godzilla is in it for like a very brief amount of time. And I'm not going to spoil I'm not going to get into where you see him or anything like that. Again, only 3 episodes in so far. That's all that's been released. But where's Big Monsters? It's Big Monster movie show. Where are big monsters? Show me more big monsters. I want more big monsters. We're really not there. So far, I've seen 3 big monsters. The first time you see big monster is at the very end of episode 2, and it's not a big monster that you know. It's just like, here's a big monster, I guess. And then we get a little bit of Godzilla in episode 3, and then we get a new big monster at the end of it. And I don't know, like they're trying. I'm sure that they're trying to do like kind of a human advantage of it and building these characters, but like I just don't care about the characters that much. They're kind of like Kurt Russell's in it now, so I've gotten to Kurt Russell, so that's great. One of the guys from Workaholics is in it. Anders something or other. And he's fine, but I just keep seeing Durs from Workaholics. So that's kind of, and you know what? I don't want to, I'm sure he's doing something like this because he doesn't want to be typecast. So that's great. And he's doing fine. All the actors are doing fine. It's just big monster movie. Where are my big monsters? I need more big monsters. Deliver me more big monsters. Because at time of recording, I'm recording this on the 27th of November. Godzilla -1 comes out on like December 1st, like in a couple of days. And I am going to probably, maybe not this weekend, maybe the next weekend, I'm going to try to go and watch Godzilla because I love Godzilla movies. I like big monster. I like big monster and I like big robot. And they should forget Pacific Rim 2 and just do more Pacific Rim stuff. Or give us, like, why has there not been a live action Gundam movie? Like, we have Robot Jocks, which is a live action Gundam movie from the 80s, and it I'm not going to say it sucks. It is what it is. I have seen it multiple times, and I will probably watch it again at some point because it is a very fun and interesting movie, but it's not necessarily what we're all looking for here. So Apple TV, what are you doing? Give me more big monster. Finally, as I mentioned, reading more comics. So Squirrel Girl, The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl is something that my daughter kind of turned me on to. She really got into it. It's a fun, very fun comic, very fun Marvel kind of thing. I am sad that they have yet to do a TV show. I'm sure that at some point in time they will, because I know Squirrel Girl is very popular among a lot of people. But 2015 I think is the first run of the comics, and it's a lot of fun. If you have the Marvel Unlimited, or if you are looking for something that is superhero-y but not serious, Squirrel Girl, a lot of fun. So highly recommend it. I've only done the first run of it. I haven't gone into other ones because I decided I wanted to. Like I said, there's a lot of Star Wars graphic novels in there. So I started up the Lando series. I've already read the Darth Vader Reborn series, or Darth Vader, like post. It's Darth Vader after A New Hope, and oh no, I'm sorry, it's Darth Vader not after. It's Darth Vader after after Anakin turns into, what is that? Revenge of the Sith, and his kind of like. Because, Darth Vader wasn't like, oh, I'm a badass immediately. He was kind of a fuck up in the beginning, as it turns out. So that's a lot of fun. So if you're looking for some comics, if you're looking for some graphic novels to read, Squirrel Girl is really great. If you have other suggestions for me that I could read, kind of in the same vein of Squirrel Girl, let me know. Whether Marvel or not, like graphic novels you can get from the library too, like on Libby or Hoopla. And I'll tell you, if you're a member of the military, or if you have a DoD ID number, you can get the DoD library on Libby, and it has a lot more in it than my local library does. So, little thing for you to know, little side thing there. If you're wanting to read more books, I found a lot of comic books that way. So, that's what I've been into. That's kind of what I've been, last week I watched a little bit of Rambo. This week watching Monarch. I don't really have anything else kind of lined up. It's Monday when I'm recording this. I don't have anything else that I'm kind of planning. Like I said, I might go see Godzilla -1 this weekend. We'll see if I have the time. I do have, hopefully it'll be in theaters for a while, because I do always get a big chunk of time off between Christmas and New Year's, and I can go watch some stuff there. But again, big monster movies. I love big monsters. More big monsters. Let's go big monsters. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and transition over into some reading from the Women's Home Companion. We'll talk about that a little bit more coming up, and then we'll a few things that I'm gonna have in the store for you. So this week, rather than do the anti-war zines that I've been doing recently, I found a copy of The Woman's Home Companion from April 1943. I picked this up at an antique mall for about $2. And this is World War II years, and these are basically a magazine. It was a monthly magazine started in 1873 and ran to about 1957. And so this originally started by men, but eventually, edited and ran by women. And it's a really interesting periodical that has a lot of serial stories in it. It's got a lot of advertisements from the day, as it were, and a lot of just there's things about the war. There's the fiction writing in it revolves around the war. It's very war-centric, but not in a negative kind of way. It tries to keep upbeat and positive. It gives you, hey, there's shortages going on. Here's rayon we've discovered, since rubber is going to the boys and fighting the war. So here's rayon to keep, a rayon girdle to keep all of your bits in place. And here's, you can use oatmeal as a facial cleanse to soften your skin and things like that. The stuff that when, we don't really have these problems today because we mass produce everything, and there's not really shortages of stuff, but you had to deal with these things back then. So I've got a couple of articles that I'm going to read out of here. The first one is a bit of an ad, but it is, I believe, historically a good thing to go with. This is about the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, and how you too can join the WAAC. So at the time, women joined the army, but like this kind of thing that was like you're not part of the army, but you're part of this like kind of side army where we definitely need the quote manpower. We need the people to be able to do these things, but we can let women do it because you're too fragile to, I don't know, go shoot Nazis or something. The Soviets never had that problem. The Soviets let women go shoot Nazis all the time. I feel like America was kind of falling behind on that. So let's see. So this is the life, and I love it. If you had told me 4 weeks ago that I'd really enjoy army life, I'd have said you were crazy. It wasn't for fun that I joined. You know the reason. You felt it yourself. A deep need to do something about this war. A feeling I had to give in to before I could find peace of mind. The WAAC is an outlet for that feeling, and it's a good deal more. Frankly, it's the most fun I've had in years. There's a grand group here at the training center. Interesting, lively women from all over. Sally from Boston, Jane from St. Louis, young Joan from Georgia. Sounds like the Zoo Crew. Already I've made friendships that I mean to cling to throughout life. There's something about every one of them, a light in their eyes and an unspoken sense of purpose that, well, it's just fine. When we step out in close order drill, yes, once I thought it would be tough, but it isn't. We move together, right on the beat. My squad's the best in the company. We keep busy and we're learning a lot, but that doesn't mean it's all work by any means. The time we have for songs, a Coke, or a game of ping pong seems all the more precious because, like soldiers, we came here bent on a serious duty. And like a company of soldiers, there's never was a team or a club more with more to share. In another week, our basic training will be over. Then some of us will go on to specialist schools like motor transport or aerial photography or bakers and cooks. The best will go on to officer candidate school immediately, and others later as we prove up. Companies will be formed and sent into the field, taking over from soldiers who have been biting their nails at desk jobs and now have their chance to punch Hitler in the nose. We may go anywhere: Texas, New Jersey, England, Africa, California. If it wasn't for the excitement of wondering where it comes next, I'd be sorry to leave this place. It's a wonderful experience. Just think of what I'll have to tell my grandchildren. And then it's got a little thing about how you too can join the WAAC. You should be a healthy U.S. citizen, age 21 to 44, inclusive of any race, color, or creed, either married or single, provided you have no dependents or children under 14. High school diploma not necessary. Go to your nearest U.S. Army recruiting and instruction station for full information on how you can help your country. Do it at once. Total war won't wait. And keep them flying. It says keep them flying because the Air Force still hadn't broken off at that time. But so that's the Women's Auxiliary Corps, and we'll have a couple of other things in this as well. Next, from the Women's Home Companion are letters from overseas. So they had a section here where you could send in letters that you received from people who were overseas, the fighting men and women and whatnot. So this one is called No Men to Worry With. And it starts described as, my daughter, an American, is now a pilot in England with the Air Transport Auxiliary, a civilian ferry organization which ferries all airplanes from the factories to the Royal Air Force maintenance units and squadrons. Dearest Mother, I would like to tell you of my first real job. I was given 2 chits, order slips, for delivering 2 planes. In a wild hurry, I snatched my kit away, and I was away and ran to the waiting taxi plane. I tossed my chute in and almost fell in after it. After pulling myself together, I stood up and looked around at the 7 other pilots, all women. Then I looked up at the pilot's seat, another woman. It was quite an odd sight. 8 females starting off in a day's work and no men to worry with. Due to the fact that most of us who came here had already had quite a bit of flying experience, we were not kept on the light ships, but after a few days. We were sent to school for a conversion course, and then we were passed out for single-seat fighters. When I walked in to get to the ship, there she sat. To me, the largest airplane I had ever seen. As I looked at her from about 50 feet, I slowly walked up to her and said, "Good morning, chum." She looked at me and made the most gosh-awful face and seemed to laugh out loud at the tune my knees were playing. I fooled her, though, by getting in and showing her who was the boss. After 3 hours, we were the best of pals, and just getting to like each other when they passed me out of the school back to the ferry flight with a promotion to second officer with 2 rank stripes on my shoulder. The other day, I was informed again that I would be recalled to the school for further training on all types of twin-engine equipment. After I complete this course, I will have flown practically every type of airplane that has been built by the United States and Great Britain. Of course, there are the 4-engine ships, which I will never fly because of my size, which is okay by me. Personally, my hat is off to each and every living person on this little island. Each and every person is doing his or her bit to help win this war. There's not an idle hand, no matter how young or old. There's a job to be done, and they are doing it. Hazel. All right, and the final piece from here is going to be a something about getting how to get yourself a job once your husband has been sent off to war and is making army money, which is not as much as even back then. Being in the army didn't mean that you were making fuck all from money. So it starts with, "Dear Janet, as one army wife to another, I know just how you feel. I faced the exact same problem when Bob left. I'd like to tell you how things worked out for me in the hopes that it may help. Naturally, Bob's salary as a lieutenant isn't anywhere near as large as it was before, and it first looked like as though I would have to make some drastic changes in my living, even to giving up the home that Bob and I have worked so hard to get. If I can only keep things going until he returned, and I thought of that for day and night. But, like you, I had no business experience at all. I didn't even know where to look for a job, let alone one that would pay me well. Well, Janet, I happened to discuss my quandary with a friend in the life insurance business, and she said there are great career opportunities for women in life insurance these days. That conditions have broadened the market and capable people are needed to handle the business. At first, I laughed at the idea. I never sold a thing in my life, and I knew next to nothing about life insurance. But finally, I agreed to talk to my friend's manager, the head of the Union Central Life Agency here in town. It was the luckiest break in the world for me. He was sympathetic and interested and seemed to think that I could sell. And he told me a lot about Union Central Life, too, its billion-dollar standing, and the respect which UC agents command in the field. At his suggestion, I took the company's capability tests, and to my surprise, I rated quite well. Then I went through the Union Central Complete Training course for agents. I started making my money in my new career almost right away. The slide films, lectures, and textbooks I studied in that course gave me the necessary background and helpful advice from my manager increased my earnings. Today I'm making enough to keep the home fires burning until Bob gets back. But there's still a lot more to it than even that. If the worst should happen and he shouldn't return, something all of us Army wives must face, at least I have the comfort of knowing that I'm establishing myself in a career that gives me a lifetime work at a substantial income and enables me to earn a valuable old age pension for myself through the Union Central Agents Pension Plan. And best of all, I'm happy and independent in what I'm doing, and that I feel that I'm being of genuine service to the people of this community. I hope you consider these things, Janet, as you decide what to do, what's best for you. The Union Central Life is looking for women just like you. Even if you think, as I did, that you would never be able to sell life insurance, you may be all wrong. Why don't you at least go take their capability tests and find out? It'll cost you nothing, and it might open a road to an otherwise missed opportunity. Drop a card to the Union Central Life Insurance Company, Department, W1, Cincinnati, Ohio. Good luck. Good stuff. Obviously an advertisement, but this is a little bit better than trying to, convince women on JBLM to sell Sensi or some bullshit like that. So life insurance, something that everybody, does need because people die constantly. It turns out it's like one of the things that all humans do is we fucking die at some point. So life insurance. And so we've got a lot. This is a pretty big magazine. I'm not going to read any of the long serials because one, they're very long, and two, they're not necessarily complete. I would hate to leave you guys on a cliffhanger, but there's still a lot of really great articles in here to talk about. I'm looking at there's a lot of beer ads. I'm looking at a picture of a pilot in a pilot that I assume, judging by the palm trees in the back, is somewhere in the Pacific, and it says between dogfights he guzzled grapefruit juice, and motherfucker is just hairy chested and pounding a can of grapefruit juice, and rich in victory vitamin C, this one. So a lot of really great stuff, a lot of really fun, fun propaganda, not the scary weird shit that we have to deal with today. So I hope you enjoyed that, and looking forward to doing more out of the Women's Home Companion. All right, everybody. So I have something very interesting for the store. I found my wife and I went to an antique mall. I love to go to antique malls. You find the strangest fucking shit there. So we went to an antique mall and I found a box. This box. It's a little torn up on the front, so you can't really see it. But this box is trading cards and stickers from Topps. 1991. This is the Desert Storm, the Desert Storm Victory Series trading cards. So this is a full box of Desert Storm trading cards, and I'm going to put these on the website for $5 a piece for a pack, for a whole pack. Not going to tell you what's inside of them, but we are going to open up one here. So, like I said, they have eight trading cards. You can convince your buddies to get some, and you can trade them back and forth. No gum, unfortunately, I don't think. So let's see what I have here. Oh, okay. So it looks like I have my sticker is the Syrian flag. So I can put that up somewhere, I guess. I don't know where I'm going to put the Syrian flag at. So let's see what we have here. So Desert Storm, our trading cards here. Anti-chemical gear. This Iraq has threatened to employ chemical warfare during the war in the Gulf. This has necessitated that Allied soldiers be issued chemical protective gear, including gas masks and anti-chemical suits. So, mop gear, look at them go. Next, what? The HMMWV, the Hummer, with what looks like some kind of recoilless rocket on top. I don't know what that is on top of there, but the Humvee, making its first appearance. The lightweight and versatile Hummer, short for high mobility multi-wheeled vehicle, is used for a wide variety of functions in Operation Desert Storm. Shown here is equipped with a setter missile. It can also be mounted with tows and other missiles. And if the second war in Iraq has taught us anything, you can put all kinds of shit on top of those. Let's see. Next up, we've got In the Trenches with our chocolate chips here. In the Trenches. While some Operation Desert Storm combat troops dig into the desert and fight in trenches, others engage in land battles in vehicles. A variety of weapons are employed in the trenches, such as grenade launchers, missile launchers, machine guns, tow missiles, mortars, and other unmounted munitions. Whew. Oh, here's a good one. The CH-47 Chinook. I've flown in quite a few of these in my day. Designed and built in 1956, still going strong, these Chinooks. By Vertol, later Boeing, was the CH-47 Chinook was the first developed for the Army as an all-weather cargo helicopter. The latest model is equipped with more powerful engine, improved flight controls and avionics, and is capable of carrying 22,700 pounds of men and munitions. The Chinook continues to be a mainstay in the Army's helicopter fleet. Yeah, these things have jet engines on them too. They took a helicopter and they put jet engines on them to make it go forward faster. It's great. Next one, unit sizes Bravo. Regiment, a group of battalions, most often 3 to 5, with headquarters command by a colonel. A brigade is approximately 3 to 6 battalions under the command of a colonel or brigadier general. Division is several brigades or regiments, usually 3, plus smaller supporting units, battalions or companies led by a major general. So it kind of gives you a breakdown of how our divisions and everything work. We've got General Yusak. I don't know this guy. Let's learn about General Yusak. Commander of the U.S. Army branch of Central Command, leads more than 280,000 troops. His responsibilities in Operation Desert Storm include planning and executing Army ground tactics, targeting intelligence, troop movements, and and support of other forces. He also oversees and maintains programs of feeding the troops, which is important. We need to eat. Next up, we have mail call. Every soldier loves to get their mail. Letters from friends, loved ones, and citizens who support the men and women of Operation Desert Storm help keep the troops' morale high. Many celebrities and less famous Americans have donated Jesus Christ, all right. Books, music cassettes, and videotapes to provide the Allied soldiers with a touch of home. We got a lot of care packages when I was in Iraq and Afghanistan too. We did appreciate them, especially when the PX would run out of soap and we'd have to break into these and take all the soap. Final one, the Stealth F-117A. Ooh, look at that guy. The Lockheed F-117A stealth wing bomber's unique bat wing shape and composite skin panels reflect incoming radar signals in multiple directions. Signals that aren't reflected are absorbed by special coating on the airplane's surface. This renders the Stealth nearly invisible to enemy radar. The Stealth has a radar imprint equal to that of a bird, so that no stray radar signals are projected. So that is what I got, my 8 cards and my sticker, Syria, the Syrian flag. I don't know where I'm going to put this. We're going to have to see how well. I'm glad it didn't come with bubble gum, because I would absolutely have to chew it on here, much like what's his MRE Steve, who smokes the cigarettes in some of them. So there are 36, now 35 of these. So if you want your own Desert Storm trading card pack to see what you can learn from Desert Storm, those are available in the store now as you are watching. Go get these. There are 35 of them, and when they're gone, they're gone. If I sell out of them pretty quickly, I'll see if I can find more to throw up on the store. But this was a really fun find, and I'm excited to send these out. So if you do buy them, please open them up and send me pictures, because I'm really interested. Because this is the Victory series. There were so many different versions of these Desert Storm ones. So. And because I looked them up, there's the Victory series, there's the Battle series, there's all kinds of stuff. So look for those in the store. The link will be below. You can pick these up. Hopefully you guys get some ones cooler than learning about brigades and battalions that I did. But so thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching. I appreciate everything that you do. And supporting us and what we do. I really have fun with this. I hope that this episode was fun, even though I spent the first 30 minutes of it kind of angry. You know what? I don't get angry on the internet very much. I try not to. So hopefully that doesn't dissuade you. And it was a lot more fun than we were hoping. But let's see. The Victory, an encyclopedic record of the Allied coalition deployment in the Persian Gulf. Cards contain statistical data and photo of military hardware, biographical information on military and civilian leaders, and historically significant dates. So you might get Victory in the Desert Day cards. I don't know what exciting dates they had back then, but we can all find out together. So check those out. And like I said, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.